How goes it?
Not too bad. Long day at work, but over now. Back again at the grind tomorrow.
Yeah, we seem to be picking up the pace. Oh, look at that! You're live on Twitch TV as well. My phone now lets me know. The internet is aware.
Welcome to the future, where the internet will tell you things you are already doing.
That's how you know you've made it to the future. Your phones are telling you things that you're actively doing.
Yeah.
It's like the Nike Run app. You are running.
You're right.
Thank you, Nike Run app. But more importantly, let's talk Magic. It's only been a few days since the last time we recorded, so we don't feel like too much has changed, but the internet has been all abuzz with initial Theros spoilers, as well as, Cube Vault and Gen Con that happened last weekend as well.
Oh, yeah, Gen Con.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I know that Wizards of the Coast, or Magic the Gathering, really kind of like first happened at Gen Con, it felt like. I know someone like Mark Rosewater went out of his way to kind of write about the experiences going to that event 20 years ago. The game was really displayed there, showcased there, and I was expecting to be very, very sad that I missed Gen Con this year. But from the kind of the accounts I'm hearing from people, I'm only a little sad I wasn't there.
I heard a lot of rumblings
Of what though?
Like, just the general consensus I heard was that like the Magic setup, so to speak, like the booth and like how they ran the tournament was like very poorly done. Like it was like hard to get around and like they weren't very organized. So like things were delayed to a very severe degree past what people expected.
Interesting.
So I think that like it wasn't necessarily like, oh, Magic didn't like go balls to the wall and have some crazy thing at Gen Con. It was like Magic was there and like I had to stand in a line of 300 people to see any of it.
Interesting. Well, I know the one year I went, a couple of years ago, the setup was for the Wizards of the Coast booths with all very much Dungeons and Dragons. I think Magic was very much an afterthought. And obviously, I would want to see a lot more from Magic. And I really kind of expected from the 20th anniversary there to be a big showing at Gen Con. But I still think that, I mean, even us being in California, that really feels like it's the mecca of tabletop gaming. That's where you want to go. And if anything, there should be a big celebration for Magic in an event like that.
I feel like the con that Magic really pushes these days is PAX. Like they do the Magic Online Championships there. They usually have like,
and that's very much the more recent.
That's like the new hotness,
right?
Gen Con is kind of like the old guard, and PAX is like the new con.
Interesting, and it's so weird because PAX is such a hybrid of cons,
right? But just in a similar way to Magic is really a hybrid of games. Comparative to Dungeons and Dragons, it's not tabletop, it's not miniatures, and especially with they're pushing more and more of the digital products, it makes a lot more sense at PAX. But they have the Magic Online Championships. They usually do kind of the first big batch of spoilers come out of PAX. They do the talks.
They've set up a structure now, and Rosewater has talked about it where it's like now the way the year breaks down. Wizards of the Coast presence at Comic-Con, where you obviously have just a fervor of nerds,
a fervor of everything.
Right. You do the tease there, and then it sets up for PAX weeks later, where you have the party because it's PAX Prime. It's in Seattle where Penny Arcade is out of. It's where Wizards of the Coast
is so much easier for them to really go all out. Everyone's there.
It sets up this year structure. But all those things aside, I've heard nothing about vintage events that took place at Gen Con.
Didn't they get rid of them?
Well, they got rid of the Champs events that were held there previously.
I thought they
kind of relabeled it. They moved it around.
I thought like the official Wizards sanctioned vintage event at Gen Con was no longer a thing.
Well, it's not by Wizards of the Coast, but still been run by the TO of that event. So similarly to how vintage Champs had been run in the past. So events still could have been run. I believe that they were running them for like Antiquities Uncut sheet or something this year. Like something really rare and cool. It'd be nice to have, but it wasn't the same kind of thing where in years past, even if Wizards of the Coast didn't put out a big show or big spread for Magic, you'd still get really cool information about things like vintage at Gen Con. And I haven't even heard any about that this year.
Yeah, there was no coverage that I saw. No one talking. Really that more speaks to the state of vintage as a format than anything else.
Yeah, we kind of covered that on the show as well. It's I definitely think it's dead, but I think if there was one place where it wouldn't be dead, it would be the place that it kind of was born.
Right, but vintage is now so dead that it's not even at Gen Con, really. And it's sad, but that's kind of just the state of things.
That's a pretty definitive nail in the coffin.
If you can't even have a serious, huge vintage tournament at Gen Con, which is the one place they've always had one, why are you even trying?
even 100 people could have shown up to play in the event too. We just don't even know about it. I mean, half my point is that there was no coverage, there was no promotion,
right?
And it's not like we're not looking. I mean, I'm looking for these kind of things. I want to see that kind of information. So a bit of a letdown there. I was really surprised that in many ways I felt like Gen Con weekend kind of came and went. And if it wasn't from someone like Adam Staborski from Gathering Magic, I don't know if I would have heard a peep from that event. So
yeah, I mean, I think Gen Con also is so eclipsed from more of like a con perspective. It's so much less of like the huge show that things like Comic-Con is and like PAX, where there's just so much more news coverage because there's so many more things there and so many things going on.
I just think that the sources there don't do a very good job of promoting it. I mean, obviously the feel is different. You don't go to Comic-Con to play games with people you might have just met that weekend for 40 hours.
And you don't go to Gen Con to hear like a panel from J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, but would you go to Gen Con to get a panel from Wizards of the Coast?
I mean, I don't think I'm going to Gen Con anyway.
If you woke up at Gen Con.
Sure.
So if I said, hey, Eck, you've won tickets to
free
Gen Con.
Free tickets to Gen Con. Floss in Paradise.
You've got the 4-day pass.
Right. I would go. Yeah, I would absolutely go.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would play Magic 70% of the time. Well, if my wife came, I would play Magic 60% of the time. I would hit the dealer hall and the demo floor 20% of the time. I would probably be interested in things like panels, which are kind of off base from the rest of the area, 5 to 10% of the time, and then I'd be gorging food 5 to 10% of the time.
All right.
When you go to these things,
you have this math worked out.
Very definitively.
You got a playbook.
Yeah, I think Gen Con is one of those things where I would just want to, it's not about Magic, it's not about seeing exclusives, it's not about picking up exclusive. To me, it's kind of the mecca of just having the gaming experience that I really think that we would have fun at it. We would kind of recapture a lot of things we've done in our youth on a bigger scale, on a place that really kind of brings it all together.
See, for me though, I mean personally, Magic is really like, I mean, I'm not much of a board gamer. D&D, miniatures games don't appeal to me at all.
Okay.
Magic is really the only like non-video
electrical. It's the only unplugged game that you play,
other than basic like poker or stuff like that. But
I don't know. I think you kind of get into some of that other stuff. Like if you played Hero Quest, you'd probably enjoy it.
I really don't like miniature games.
It's not a miniature; it's a board game. And for the most part, I agree with you. When I went to Gen Con, I was like, I'm here for cards. Cards are what it's all about. But there are so many great spreads out there. There's so many like Rio Grande games.
I'm not saying I wouldn't have fun, and that but it's just like that for me personally. Like I'm not gonna like go out of my way to go to this convention of board and tabletop games because those things are not my wheelhouse.
Right, and I understand that, and I am so confident in the experience that you would have there that I think I could take you there, and you would have a good enough time to be like, I'd come back. I'm that confident.
Wow.
And I know where you're coming from. I totally understand your gaming preference.
Because like I would rather,
you'd rather laying it up with your friends.
Well, I'd rather like go to like something like PAX.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like more like Magic is still represented, but even
to a far more subdued.
If you were to take the Magic portion out of both conventions, say, and like say they were equivalent, right? That the same presentation is at PAX as it is at Gen Con. I would rather go to PAX because of the other things there.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think you can weigh them the same.
No, I'm not. But I'm saying like in this hypothetical.
Right. Because again, the Gen Con experience is more. It's more about the dealers. It's more about the games, and it's more about the physical card tournaments. As where PAX does not have that.
Right, I understand that, but I'm just saying like the non-Magic attractions of PAX draw me in more than the non-Magic attractions of Gen Con, at least on the surface.
Well, then Wizards must be doing it right.
I gotta go to both apparently.
I don't know if you're the target audience, then they picked the right angle going with PAX.
Yeah.
But we're here to eventually talk about Cube, as much as we've talked about how Magic has kind of come and gone over Gen Con over the last weekend.
We like to
our friends who are with the Cube Vault Kickstarter were at Gen Con as well. So over the weekend, in 6 days actually, they hit their mark. They were looking for 8,000. They got 8,000. So now we're just waiting for some to get off their butts and put up some stretch goals. So, there's an update. I don't know what that update is about.
It's probably we hit our stretch goal, or we hit our goal. Yeah.
Okay. So, anyone who's already put into this project, who's looking for a great cube box, excellent. You're doing the right thing. Anyone who hasn't yet, you've still got time to put into it. Again, I think it's a great project. I fully endorse what they're trying to do here. Look into it. It's pretty much just going to be a little over $100 to get the Cube Vault itself, which again we talked about last week on the show.
How familiar are you with like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and that kind of funding?
I have minimal experience.
Because I really like the setup of like,
the sooner you get in on
the sooner you get in it. Like there was a cell phone, like a smartphone by the Ubuntu team that was set up like this.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you got it on the ground floor, it was like $600. But like if you didn't, it was like $800.
By the time the Kickstarter was over?
Like I really think it's a smart way of doing it.
Oh yeah, especially when you're struggling with new things to offer. I mean, some people go into Kickstarter campaigns with a long laundry list of ideas they want to put out there and marks they can hit to make those things happen.
I think that the most successful Kickstarters are the ones where it's like less nebulous ideas of like what people want to do and like, hey, wouldn't it be great if I made like a movie and it had space fights and whatever, like, this whole big thing, where it is instead like, look at this thing I've made. I can make hundreds more of them if you give me money. Like, which is like what this is. Like, they already have...
Right, and so
like,
the first 50 people get in on it for, 10% over cost.
Right.
The next,
you're not
spending
the money necessarily on development. You're spending it on the production, which I think people can get behind a lot easier. There was another Kickstarter campaign or something I saw a number of, I think it was months ago at this point, for playmats that had
the digital ones?
The digital playmat that had like the little screen in the bottom.
Right.
Which is like a very cool concept, right? But
maybe.
I mean, like, in theory, it seemed neat, but, so much of what the allocation of that was for actually making it work. Like, they didn't have, like, it was all prototyped. Like, they didn't have one, like, hey, we built one and it totally works, check it out, it's awesome. It was like, well, this is what it will look like. And,
right, they need more R&D money.
Right. And I think, like, you're going to have such a better time if you're running one of these to have already had the R&D covered by someone else, and then just use the Kickstarter to fund like the production costs.
Well, thankfully, we're making a box here. We're not making a playmat that's got your iPhone integration.
Right.
So, again,
a little simpler for sure.
But you've got just over 10 days at the time of this broadcast, and if you're listening to the podcast after the fact, I don't know how many minutes you have left, but definitely check out the Kickstarter for the Cube Vault. Again, it's well worth it. I know the guys are making this thing. It's going to be a quality product. So yeah, it's stretch goal time. We've hit the mark. We know it's going to happen. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of time left.
My vote for stretch goals: custom engraving.
Okay.
If that's not already offered,
it's not current.
No.
It's not current.
No,
I like that idea. I wanted like a shoulder strap because I'm tired of not having enough arms to carry all my stuff around with.
It should come with a pair of handcuffs so you can handcuff it to your wrist.
Sure, yeah. I mean, all of these things sound good to me. I'm very excited to see what those guys come up with for stretch goals. And again, if you're here listening to this cast, you're obviously very dedicated to your cube and you want to have something along these lines to keep it in. So definitely check that stuff out. And last on our prelims, let's do some pick ones. Let's just picks, and then we'll come back to Theros spoilers.
Yeah.
All right. So pick one, pack one for this week, Eck. What do you got? Oh, it's all over. Go ahead.
I know. I was going to say, I don't even know why you sent me this pack. So this pack is Revelark, Banefire, Aura of Silence, Misty Rainforest, Nezumi Grave Robber, Inferno Titan, Isolated Chapel, Elixir of Immortality, Underground Sea, Sacred Foundry, Phyrexian Metamorph, Pernicious Deed, Jinxed Choker, Debtor's Knell. I don't even need to ask you what you're taking.
I think you missed Harmonize. Did you miss
Harmonize.
And Harmonize.
Harmonize is the fourth.
I'm taking that Revelark.
What a shot.
If
Revelark.
If there was a Revelark in that pack, I'd probably take a Metamorph.
I want you to get, like, the Revelark art as, like, a huge back tattoo. Like, shoulder blade to shoulder blade. You don't even let me just get, like, a regular... Can I make that a Kickstarter? Like, give us $20,000 and I'll have
to tattoo the shit out of my back?
Yeah. I think that's a worthwhile usage of money.
I have to get real close to that Revelark art. It mostly just appears to be like some light bubbles bursting with some wings around it.
It's like a weird energy thing with like wings just shooting out of it in every direction.
So there were a lot of lands in this pack. I obviously take a Misty Rainforest over any of the other lands. Fetch lands are very, very key. I obviously love Phyrexian Metamorph. That card's huge.
I think I actually just like taking Misty Rainforest here. And my reasoning for it is this.
You don't have a hard-on for Revelark?
No, I don't. I tend to evaluate that card at a far more even keel than other people in the room.
It's such blowout town.
This pack is kind of like... It's very wishy-washy, but there are a lot of cards that people are going to snap up early. Like Revelark, Inferno Titan, Deed is a very popular card. someone's going to try and get crazy with Debtor's Knell. Phyrexian Metamorph is an early pick.
I don't
it's very likely that you're going to be able to get a second dual land back out of this pack. And
it's going to be Isolated Chapel.
And that's fine, because, like, I have no problem going kind of... Like, Misty Rainforest is a card where, like, I'm almost always going to find a way to play it as long as I'm blue or green. Like, it's just going to be better than Basic Forest or Basic Island in 99% of my decks.
Fetch lands are that good in Cube.
And trying to set up, like, being able to get a second land back gives you the opportunity to at least think about maybe making some kind of 5-color deck with the knowledge of, like, okay, I'm probably going to lap a dual land, which is going to help my mana base. So I can think about if I see cards to help the 5-color deck, like, I've already got a dual land, I'm going to get a second one probably, and now I can look to maybe try and take advantage of that in the middle picks.
So in summation, you just want to be as open as possible, and fetch lands are, like, the most open of
other than, like, mana rocks and good equipment. Like, they're about as open as you get.
That is a great quote from the chat. For those of you that remember, X previously talks about Revelark. I would also say that Revelark is also very non-committal with the single white.
But see,
that's my viewpoint on it.
None of these cards, other than, I guess, Inferno Titan, are really committal, I would say. I guess Debtor's Knell.
I guess you can't really call Deed or Knell committal. They're more like, what the hell? No one... You would have misclicked to ever have that Debtor's Knell in your pool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unless you, like, have the Rector already.
Like, no, I'm saying, like, pick one,
instead
pack
of,
one, like...
snapped off the Rector?
I'm saying, like, pick one, pack one. No one whose shoulder I'm standing over taking a land there am I shaking my head at.
Yeah.
But no one who's taking a Revelark or a Metamorph. Like, you can't really go wrong here unless you go really wrong.
Right.
And since it's, like, some 10s, some 8s, and some 2s... Like, it's not like there's a lot of middle ground here. So, again, I don't blame you for taking Misty Rainforest. Yeah, I think it really just kind of speaks to fetch lands are the best lands to take. Those are the ones you're going to want to take early. They're going to leave you the most open. I have a love affair with Revelark.
I think packs like this, and specifically like this discussion about your love affair with Revelark, really play to something about evaluating in Cube that I try and stress and reiterate as much as I can, but I feel like kind of gets washed over sometimes, is that Cube... People always ask me, like, well, what's the better card? What's the pick order? What are the top 10 cards in Cube? What's the drafting order? And I feel like the more you attempt to, like, mechanically analyze Cube and drafting in that, especially in this format in that fashion, the worse off you're going to be. Cube is so much a format about how you feel and like how you're comfortable with certain decks, as well as being aware of analyzing, like, the people around you and how they approach things. Like, for example, say this pack had...
Say you opened this and I was sitting on your left.
Right. If you're sitting on my left, right, then, obviously I know you're going to take the Revelark. Now I know you're going to take it. I can avoid, with that knowledge, I can avoid white cards, I can avoid, probably blue. On the flip side, say that Inferno Titan was a Goblin Guide, and Vin, our other roommate, was on my right. In a lot of cases, I would probably take Goblin Guide because I really like the mono red deck. However, he forces it almost every time he drafts. So if I take Goblin Guide, it's very likely that I'm going to get cut out of all the cards that I want. So being able to understand, like, where you are at a table, what you want to do, and what other people want to do is a lot more important than knowing, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and trying to just work your way down the list until you find a card in the pack.
I think there's still a middle ground there, because you draft a lot of random, just because we have a league every week where we draft with the same 16 or 20 people. Mm-hmm. Also, if I opened Oath, it would be a situation I wouldn't.
If you opened Oath and Revelar?
No, I'm saying if I was initially thinking, I was like, if I was on your left and you open this pack, I'm going to take Revelark like 90+% of the time.
Unless you open.
But I was trying to think of cards where I wouldn't do that. And Oath of Druids is the first one that popped in mind. If I open Oath of Druids, I'd want the Misty Rainforest.
Right.
I wouldn't get it. Instead, I'd have to settle for like Harmonize or
Pernicious Deed?
Pernicious Deed or Elixir Immortality. I probably hope that Elixir would table.
Yeah.
All right. So what's our scenario number uno?
Scenario numero uno. The cards that we have are Maloku the Clouded Mirror, Strategic Planning, Bitter Blossom, and Venser Shaper Savant.
I like it.
The pack we are past is Birds of Paradise, Divine Deflection, Sacred Foundry, Gisela Blade of Gulp, Knight?
Yep.
Alright. Blood Crypt, Triskelion, Searing Blaze, Complicate, Rakdos Cackler, Mangara of Karandor, and Go for the Throat. I like Go for the Throat here. As a quick aside, every time I look at strategic plannings, it makes me really mad that Glimpse the Future is a card.
It makes me really mad that Glimpse of the Future costs 3 mana.
Right, that's what I mean.
Right, yeah.
We could have just had strategic planning.
Right. I just really wanted a black border strategic planning, because white border cards are so ugly.
And it would have, helped out poor EDH players everywhere.
That card isn't as bad as it used to be. No. I am such a value monger. I want that Complicate so bad.
See, and I know that. I know you're a value monger, but I feel like this deck is already pretty clearly interested in kind of going long.
Yeah.
And Complicate is pretty bad going long.
No, it's not. It's Mana Leak or it's Force Spike draw card for 3
Right,
mana.
and both of those cards drop off pretty hard. Late.
Anything that cycles is always gonna not be dead in the late game.
I say that you're looking to go late, but that's not an absolute yet. And I feel like if you were to potentially get aggressive and try and play a tempo kind of slant on this, Go for the Throat's really good there, just clearing the way so that you can race or get rid of blockers.
I mean, I think we can immediately narrow this down to 3 cards. I think it's a conversation of Complicate, Go for the Throat, and Blood Crypt.
Yes.
All the other cards fade away. I mean, there's no circumstance in which I want Triskelion or a red-white dual land. Or
the CAC is not really making.
No, Cackler is also not in this conversation. So the conversation is: do you want a fixer into a Grixis color combination, which could be very powerful, and have support cards for win conditions like Bitter Blossom or Moloku? Do you just want the kill spell like Go for the Throat, keep it simple, or do you want to get tricky with that counter spell? I think it's a very easy fork in the road for us here. You're taking Go for the Throat, I assume.
I just think that premium removal in blue-black is harder to come by than premium counterspells.
Interesting.
And Complicate's not even a premium counterspell.
I don't think Complicate's a premium counterspell.
No. So, I would rather a premium removal spell than a non-premium counterspell.
I mean, I do take the only blue card in the entire pack as well, which I'm a big
There's
fan.
certainly some value to that, but I think the concept of color cutting in Cube is a little less relevant just because the packs are random.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you're like, oh man, I'm getting caught on blue so hard. Well, there's just no blue cards. They're like, oh man, blue is so open. Look at this pack; it's got 6 blue cards in it.
And I think it's less about trying to read signals as much as just it's more about a subliminal message of drafting. Where if for example, if I was past. Well, if I didn't, can't really use it with this example. But if I'm drafting green cards and green dries up for 2 packs completely, as a hybrid card or one guy, I'm probably starting to look into other avenues of colors, and that's just going to lead me into a different direction organically. It's not about identifying that there is a drought on one color.
Sure.
Either way, I'm taking Complicate.
I'm taking
I'm full of greed.
All right. In our second scenario of the day, our draft so far is Skull Clamp, Fauna Shaman, Huntmaster of the Fells, Chameleon Colossus, and we are past Return to Dust, Animate Dead, Decree of Pain, Compulsive Research, Awakening Zone, Mirroring Crusader, Venser Shaper Savant, Hymn to Torak, Reanimate, Stomping Ground, and Power Sink.
So it's either Awakening Zone or Stomping Ground?
I mean, unless you want to go with something a little different. I really like Awakening Zone. I feel like that card is underdrafted and under slotted into cubes.
We've been a kind of a more recent Awakening Zone convert in an attempt to.
I've enjoyed it, and every time I've seen other people with it, it's been good. And my thing about Awakening Zone is typically most green decks are looking to get to the later game. They're looking to cast their expensive spells, right? Because there's just so many massive haymakers in green. So the 2 ways that you get to that point are either ramping or blocking, and Awakening Zone does both.
Yeah, that's really what kind of Cap has not only brought Awakening Zone to the cube, but really kind of kept it there as a mainstay. Is that it's somehow, despite the fact that it's an enchantment that slowly makes 0/1s, it does somehow enough. It somehow finds a way to play 2 ways. Which is really great.
And I mean, the fact that you also have a Skull Clamp.
Right, which brings in a third, just over-the-top power dimension here. I think that looking at this pack, the greedy play would be to take an Animate Dead with having a Fauna Shaman. The oversimplified play would be to take the Stomping Grounds to fix your mana because you have a red mana symbol and Huntmaster of the Fells. But again, you're 4 cards into a draft, so I don't think you're very clearly defined.
You probably want to play that Huntmaster, but you're probably going to have access to another shot at fixing for it.
Oh, I mean, I think with these 4
this will not be the only red-green. This will not be the only Taiga you see.
I'm just thinking more along the lines of like, I could just be green X, and then green is the perfect color to be kind of like 4-color green, all dependent on power level. Just having a Huntmaster of the Fells here is a card that I really probably took on power level, and
also the fact that you have a Fauna Shaman means that if you don't have fixing for it, like if you don't have very good fixing for it, so you're in a situation where you can't cast it, you can pitch it.
All right, you can tutor up your Scourge Tribe Elder, you can tutor up your Yavimay Elder, you can go get that one mountain you needed, out of your 4-color green deck or whatever you're playing, whatever the color combination may be. So I agree with you. I like Awakening Zone a lot here, and it still really leaves us open to do a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Awakening Zone is a card that it's deceptive. It's kind of subtle. It's not like winning the game on its own.
It's not winning the game, really.
Yeah, but it really
enables wins.
It really just it buys you a lot of time in different ways. Like you can just sit on tokens. Like if your opponent is ever not attacking you in such a way that you have to be blocking, like the game is going to get really out of hand in short order because you're just going to dump a Terrasdon into play very quickly, or Avenger of Zendikar or something crazy, very fast.
And again, we haven't even mentioned the fact that it can many times function like a force field.
Right.
Which is...
absolutely.
Again, great card. Who would have thought? So inconspicuous.
And the fact they're colorless, you don't have to do...
You can block all the sorted guys.
Well, you don't have to worry about protection in anything, right? Like that Mirren Crusader that's in the pack. Normally that card would be a huge pain in the ass to deal with because you can't block it. But Awakening Zone doesn't care.
Right.
So...
Yeah, the ode to Awakening Zone here in the last few minutes, but it works.
I like that card. I think it's definitely earned its keep.
All right, let's talk about some Theros spoilers. All full-blown 6 cards that we're up to now.
It's a little early to talk about this, but,
Well, I think Pelucranos, the World Eater, has definitely spawned conversation. We've already been talking about it here. Is it just Deadbridge Goliath version 1.5? Is it...
I mean, I think that Deadbridge Goliath is the very obvious, if we were to card fight this thing right now, it would be matched up with Deadbridge Goliath. And it's, is Scavenge for 6 better than Monstrosity X for...
Well, they both really shine when you have a lot of mana. And the thing we want for all of these green ramp decks is we want to have them have something to do when they kind of brick on draws and all they get is a bunch of mana. Now, Deadbridge Goliath, especially in design and the talks that the designers had about that card, laid it out very easily. It was like, hey, this is something you can play turn 3 very consistently, have the biggest guy on the board, but you can also get a lot of extra value late in the game. You just have the mana creatures lying around.
Absolutely.
Now, Pelucranos works in a very similar way, where it's like you got all this mana just clumped up all over the place. Sure, you might have just curved this guy into being a 5/5 right out of the gate and started going at it with this card. Or at the same time, you've got Gaea's Cradle, Raphelos, a million D mana, and you're just like, oh, I can do a lot better than just a 5/5, and now you have that opportunity to do that on the same card. So, I think I like it a lot. I know Double X is really what kind of makes this card go from really good to having to really kind of question it.
It's still a 5/5 for 4, which is kind of still the gold standard for getting your foot in the door as a mid-range creature in green. You're looking at 4/4 for 4 at a minimum, kind of with a bomb-tastic rules text. So being a 5/5 is good, and the thing I think really the interesting discussion here is obviously Deadbridge Goliath and Pelucranos are both very good with a lot of mana. Deadbridge Goliath is better against removal because it can affect the board after it's died.
It's one of those few creatures where it's like, oh, it just dies to Doomblade.
Right, it's coming back. But so obviously untapping with Pelucranos is sweet.
So we're talking. Before we went to record, we talked about a few different aspects of it. One, is most likely you're going to be untapping, hopefully shocking a guy and attacking for 7. That still seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Or, to me, when I was trying to talk it up for a little while, I'm saying, like, it's like a one big shot Masticore, where you're, like, untapping in those Trinity-style green decks, those, like, Tooth and Nail style, maybe Hardcasting Eldrazi-style decks.
Sure.
And hopefully, like, machine gunning your opponent's board one shot.
Right. You just have to be careful that you don't kill your Pelukators by doing that.
Yeah. Well, you could still, like, exit, X could equal 5, and only target one guy.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you don't want to go too crazy.
True.
You might get some blowback. But, the fact that you can activate it as an instant is sweet,
Yeah, I was really not expecting that. When I first saw the initial spoiler of this
Well, the
card,
initial one said it was a sorcery.
Oh, okay, alright.
The wording, so, for those of you who do not, go to MTG Salvation or look at spoilers ahead of time, this card had, 17 million different wordings, briefly.
And they were all on just the monstrosity part.
Well, so, it will end the trigger.
Oh, like what?
Because it was, it does. For a while, it deals X damage to each guy. For a while, it could go to the face.
Oh.
For a while, it was X green. For a while, it was a sorcery. They've had all these different iterations because the card kind of, as a spoiler, had come from a lot of different sources before they just out and out revealed it. So, that kind of had been what sparked a lot of discussion. I know Usman was talking about it. He had proxied it and played it in Cube as one of the wordings. I don't remember which one. But, how sweet is it if it's this wording? Oh, well, what if it's this one? That's way worse. But is that still good enough?
I mean, obviously the double X is really what brings the card back into reality.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's fine as it stands. I think that comparing it, will it replace Deadbridge Goliath? I think the only way to tell would be to play with it and test it. Because I'm not looking at this and being oh yeah, obvious. It's snap, switch.
There might be other cards we could swap it out for. I don't think it has to specifically be Deadbridge Goliath.
Green has moved away from this type of creature so much in recent times. There's no Blastoderm anymore. There's, Imperiosaur. Not that it was really everything, but that's...
Hey, this guy's got to make the cube because he also lives through Wildfire.
And he does live through Wildfire, which is But so many Greens guys... we're not switching out Thrun for this guy.
Not switching out Ernie for this guy. Not switching out Chameleon Colossus for this guy.
Ernie...
I could be Ernie's day. It could be the time that Ernie takes a back seat to a giant Hydra World Eater.
Yeah, with no drawback.
So, all right. So more likely than Deadbridge Goliath leaving the cube, we might be preemptively giving the swan song of Ernam Vision.
Satyr Hedonist, right up here next to Tinderwall, which is very similar to this guy.
This card is definitely not for us.
No, it's cool.
It could be a combo cube card. I don't know.
I mean, the fact that you don't generate mana with it.
Huh? Oh, in one shot?
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Grinning Ignis type thing, though.
Yeah.
You cast it and you pass, then you untap and...
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can't, it's... The way this card is set up is such a... It's so... I feel like it's very craftily designed to avoid being broken.
Oh, yeah.
You can't combo it with Heartless Summoning because it only has one toughness. And it only makes red mana and requires red to activate. So
right. It's not hybrid green-red.
It's not an elf, so it doesn't get cheaper through other stuff.
Right.
It doesn't,
or bigger.
It doesn't, it doesn't, when it dies you get that, so you can't, sack it to Infernal Plunge and, double up. It's, very specifically, alright, we want this effect, but it's got to be very specific so we don't screw this up.
So what I'm hearing is this card has managed to dodge any outlet of being at all playable in any kind of combo-related format.
I mean, in order to generate mana with this, you have to play a 2-1, say go, have it live, and then you get to untap, and then you get +2 mana.
Yeah, I mean, that's
a lot of work.
In the magic of days of old that we would play, yes, we would all laugh at that. But for today's Magic, especially I'm coming from a place where we'd still like to see Empty the Warrens make the cube in some variety. Although this would be a net 0, this would be a freebie.
Right, that's it's a kind of Wild Cantor, right?
Yeah, or Priest of Gix.
Yeah, or Priest of Urabrask.
Yeah. Oh man, that'll be the day. We go so far off the deep end.
Oh man, that would be
all those bad boys into the cube.
Oh god. Cavalry Pegasus again, not for us.
Well, that is a sweet card, and I think that given 5 more years of cubing, a card like Cavalry Pegasus could be a contender. Definitely like Pauper Cube.
I could definitely see myself in the not so distant future doing a gatherer search for text human and seeing what comes up.
Yeah.
Because we'll hit a critical mass eventually on human triggers.
I definitely think Cavalry Pegasus is heading in the right direction. I mean, come on, it's almost a nod to Mesa Pegasus, and it's like, you want banding? There's a little bit of banding. It's a little bit of banding.
Minor banding. Ordeal of Perforos.
So I do like the way they're going with these creature enchantments. Again, creature enchantments are very fragile. You want to make sure there's plenty of upside on them. I kind of looked at this card like some kind of weird amalgamation of Galvanic Arc and Momentum, for those of you that know what those cards are.
I like the fact that they can't disenchant this thing, and it never leaves you at a complete loss.
Yeah, they can, right?
Well, they can, but you still get the +1/+1 counters.
Oh, only if the creature attacked. Like if you play as a sorcery and then they want to go to combat.
Okay, sure. You got me.
Sorry. The card can be a net zero. Like it's not like comes into play at a +1/+1 counter, then attack at a +1/+1 counter.
I think it's fine. I mean, obviously it's not going to give it anytime soon. I think cards like this are cute. I think it'd be good and limited.
Again, I think my main point on a card like this is it shows that there's design space being worked in to work around how classic auras work.
Right. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in this block, it being enchantment themed, trying to mitigate the natural card disadvantage of auras.
So it's kind of bringing a little more excitement to the surface about what we could potentially have. Again, Oratog in the queue, Oratog Rancor combo, Oratog in the queue. You never know.
Destructive Revelry. I like this one a lot more than some of its other brethren, so to speak. Hull Breach. Etc., etc.
So you take 1 damage off to Smash some Smithereens, turn the colorless into a green mana, and now you can hit enchantments as well.
That seems better. So I'm a big fan of cards like this in general. Smash Smithereens is obviously the poster child, where they're sideboard cards, but you don't feel bad as the aggressive player, because you're not cutting burn spells because you have to board in these disenchants and these shatters. You could still. It's still burn, right?
Yeah, Smash Smithereens is quite the card in queue.
Yeah, Smash Smithereens is excellent. It's definitely main deckable. But so many times, this is obviously more of a constructed thing, but it happens in queue too. You're like, all right, I know my opponent's bringing in ghostly prisons or whatever, and I need to deal with them. I guess I'll bring in these naturalizes. Oh, and I have to take out all my volcanic hammers or whatever, to try and. So it's like. You make your deck weaker because you have to bring in these sideboard cards. You lower your threat density, and cards like this let you keep some amount of that, which I like. So
again, this card gets high marks. I like it all around. I just don't think that R-Cube is not going to have room for this card. And if R-Cube isn't going to have room for this card,
no one's.
Yeah, exactly. No one's going to have room for this card. So it's a really awkward, on the outside looking in scenario.
But it's definitely one to keep in mind. I think.
No, yeah. I don't know how much deeper we could go on artifacts and enchantments before we'd be like, aha!
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. Last but not least, Anax and Symede.
Symede. I had not heard that one yet. I like that.
Yeah. So, this guy is the 3/2 Vigilance First Strike for 1 red-white.
And it's obviously...
the new keyword, Heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Anax and Symede, creatures you control get +1/+1 and trample until end of turn. I really like this guy.
I'm really indifferent. I do like how it's a misprint because it doesn't have the Boros stamp on it.
Yeah.
It's just been so long since we've seen a red-white card, or a lot of the gold card combinations that didn't have the guild insignias.
Yeah.
But, okay, so Heroic, it's only when you cast a spell, which seems like a bit of a downer, Debbie.
I mean, so when they do blade it, your team doesn't get bigger.
Or they can't shock it. It would be nice if they could shock it.
I mean, auras.
Sure.
Auras on that thing.
Sure. I think that's pretty out there. So step
Oh,
one.
it needs haste. It needs haste. Cast a spell to give it haste.
Does it give haste?
No.
No.
No, you cast a spell to give
I see.
reckless charge on that bad boy.
Ooh,
Kablamo.
7 power trampler.
I think you flash it back.
Well, I wasn't trying to get greedy. You're trying to get greedy.
I don't know if that's silly.
7 power,
First strike trample?
haste, trample, vigilance.
For a 4. And the guy stays there.
Well, we better go grab the reckless charge and bring it back in the cube.
I mean, I just like this guy because, like, 3 power, first strike, vigilance for 3 is already, like, pretty solid.
So if you'd, like, just kind of whited out the heroic part and made that, like, an uncommon, like, I'd be pretty into this card.
Yeah.
But as a rare, oh, that was close. I just don't. I'm not.
I think it's fine.
Maybe it gives Green Jacks fits.
I think it's sweetie. Jack Growth, that bad boy.
Definitely want to mutagenic growth that
like
card.
Mutagenic Growth.
Definitely want to mutagenic growth that card.
Yeah. Rancor.
Yeah, I mean, again, the fact that it's like any spell, not instant or sorcery, still doesn't make up for the fact that it's not your opponent casting spells targeting it.
Again, I feel like what spells are your opponent casting targeting this that don't kill it? And then they can just do that when you're not attacking, and then the bonus is not relevant. Like,
I guess I mean, it'd be better if it was one of those
Boros Charm this guy, make it an instruction, make it double strike. Oh, now you got 4/3 vigilance double strike. Wabam. I think this card's fine. I'm not sure if it's gonna make the cut.
I don't think it's gonna make our team.
But you know,
considering how awesome Assembled Legion has been.
Assembled Legion has been stellar.
That card
anyone not on the bandwagon for Assembled Legion should really
hardcore class
because that one isn't sweet.
It is scary.
I have a class on Fourier theory
So
and
very early Theros spoilers, obviously. It'll be a couple weeks before really we get any.
I feel like we have one cube gimme, and then we've got like just some talking points about places we can go.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the first math class that I think is gonna.
The thing is like they're Naya colors.
Actually,
right?
bring us to a point of.
Yeah, the decks are Naya colors. We haven't seen anything out of blue or black yet.
So if like the Naya colors, and especially like the 2-color combination, is really hurting,
especially at the undergraduate level.
Maybe then we would be more interested in looking at those cards. It was like, oh man, red green's really been hurting for good cards. Like that shade obviously looks a lot better. Or oh man, there's no playable red white cards. But like that's not the case. So like, however, if they spoiled like 6 black cards, we would have something to talk about.
That is a good segue.
You like that?
Yeah, it is.
On the fly.
As black is the topic of the week. Now we've talked about it before. We're kind of doing a reverse order and a bigger cycle. We talk about the colors in cube. we go back in the archives, look at the past with shows that we've done concerning those. But here we are tackling. I don't know why I lost my voice all of a sudden. Tackling probably the most
choked up about black.
The most difficult.
Certainly the most contentious. Most frustrating.
You should use this time while I'm poorly attempting this segue to go back in the old emails to find the old show notes I had about black, because I put down some details. Definitely leave those other show notes up, because those have good notes. Which you can't. Anyway, so early in the days of Cube, it was Dragon Cube, as you may or may not be familiar with. Many a 6-mana creature and sorcery would trade haymakers in the sky, and black was right up there with them, not being attacked for the first 5 turns of the game, enjoying paying life to draw cards with things like Skeletal Scrying.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
not so much.
No. It's got to be before then. They're right that one. Oh, that's even the thing I used. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can handle black. I mean,
I think the function of black historically, from a color theory point of view, is you can do whatever you want as long as you're willing to pay for it. And most typically, the resource that black utilizes more than any other color is life. Paying life for cards, Yawgmoth's Bargain, Necropotence, etc., etc. Paying life for creatures, Carnophage, Richard Anurid, etc., etc. Paying life for removal, Vendetta. Paying life for reanimation. Paying life for tutoring, Vapor Tutor. You have all this power and all these options as long as you're willing to pay life for them.
So going back in the history of Magic, you touched on it here. not only were creatures slower, were spells more powerful, Black kind of did double duty, because not only did it have the really powerful effects you could pay for, which is life you had lying around because you weren't being attacked, but it could also work the other end of the spectrum, being the creatures were so bad that its creatures could make you pay life to get the enhanced power and toughness. It would be well worth it, because there were little to nothing up against it on the board. I mean, look at, green was almost the second best color when it came to the fatties on the low end of the days, but you were paying for it in terms of the jungle lions, the pouncing jaguars, the albino trolls, the simian grunts. Like you were casting a really good creature every other turn, where Black was still kind of curving out and just using their life points to keep the race moving forward. Obviously, the game has evolved far past that since those early days.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that Cube has evolved.
Well, right, that's what I mean.
Back in the day, like you were saying, in the Wild West of Dragon Cube, Black's life payment for its effects was a much more minimal cost because there were no real aggro effects. The most aggressive deck was like maybe White Weenie, and that was not really...
If that one came together.
If that one came together.
And it also helped with a lot of those creatures were pro-Black.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
Right.
But, there just wasn't, nowadays a very good mono red deck in Cube can reliably kill an opponent, like a goldfish opponent, by, turn 5. Or even faster.
Yeah.
And that just didn't exist, both by a combination of the design of Cube and also the availability of cards. It just didn't exist back then. So being able to pay 10 life over the course of a game for various things like drawing cards or killing guys or tutoring or whatever was much less relevant, whereas now if you try to pay 10 life to do that, the red deck is just licking your chops.
You wouldn't have 10 life.
Yeah, you would have 10 life, yeah. They're just bolting you in the face.
Yeah, a card like Skeletal Scrying is a great example of drastically different card evaluation and just popularity and playability over the course of the last 6 years of cubing. Again, looking at the history of Magic and the history of Black, it was solidly the second best color in all of Magic for what felt like a decade. And obviously, creatures have gotten better, and Black has not gotten better. I think that really kind of one of the big turning points you can look to is not only creatures getting better, but really Planeswalkers coming into existence for Cube.
Right. Black having no reliably good way to deal with Planeswalkers. They don't have burn. They don't have counterspells. They don't have permanent removal, so to speak. They don't even necessarily have a lot of good creatures with which to attack them.
We were all very excited when a card like Vampire Hexmage was printed, and I think that for me, definitely there was an assumption where it's like, well, we'll get more things like this.
And, I mean, Despise, they tried. Despise was kind of a bust. But, Hex Parasite, kind of like a Planeswalker hosiery kind of thing.
I guess.
The problem is that, the rate at which they print Planeswalker hosers, as it were, is not nearly the same rate as which they print Planeswalkers, period. So, because Planeswalkers are almost, 75% of the time Cube playable out of the box, they just don't print enough cards to keep up with them, other than other Planeswalkers.
I mean, we're almost kind of getting one card per block, and it's almost just kind of coincidence. I mean, out of Zendikar, we had Vampire Hexmage,
which was very intentional.
Out of
Scars, we had
Hex Parasite Despise, I guess you could call it. We didn't even play those.
They'll Despise very clearly.
Sure, it
said the word Planeswalker.
You get to Innistrad, and you pretty much have nothing. I mean, I guess I count Appetite for Brains.
Yeah, I mean,
it hits most of the Planeswalkers, and that's probably, if you're playing Black and you're casting Appetite for Brains, you're probably your number one target with that card.
One of the other problems regarding Planeswalkers in Black is that Black's Planeswalkers are bad. The only one that's good, as if you watched us or listened last week when we were ranking the Planeswalkers, the only one that even got that cracked the top 10 for anyone was Liliana the Veil, who is excellent, mind you. But
sorry, Markov, laughably nowhere near the list.
No, not even mentioned.
Not even mentioned. When Zendikar came out, we played that card.
Yeah,
and it was okay.
That was bad. Yeah. So the problem is that Black has this huge problem dealing with this immensely powerful card type, and also has none of that card type to itself that are any good. So on power level, it's just constantly falling behind until they either print some good Planeswalker removal in Black, like Terror for Planeswalkers.
Well, so that was the thing. If we go from
more
Innistrad,
good Black Planeswalkers,
if we go from Innistrad block to Ravnica block, where if you consider Appetite for Brains our only hit. Then you kind of get Dreadbore, but that has to, because it's the gold set in Ravnica. You have to
go to red.
Touch on another color for it.
Or like a potentially good, okay Planeswalker in Vraska that you have to go to green for, who also fights with the Planeswalkers, but the problem is you need like Doomblade for Planeswalkers, or more like look at like a color like blue for instance, right? Blue just has like an embarrassment of riches with Planeswalkers, right? Jace Belleran, Jace the Mind Sculptor, Jace Architect of Thought, Tameo. We're not even playing Jace Memory Adapt. People can play Tezzerets, if you've got that thing going, and because blue has not only counter spells to deal with Planeswalkers, but bounce, like they can manage Planeswalkers better than like black can. Like black is really like duress, Thoughtseize. If I miss, like if you draw it, I'm in trouble.
You haven't even touched on Confiscate.
Right, Confiscate. You take possession.
For those that remember way back in the day of the initial process of you make the card. As soon as we found out we were getting a black enchantment, on our list was gain control
of target Planeswalker.
Like what would that cost? That would help it out a lot. So in the current days of Magic, it seems like all things seem to be working more against black, and it's not just black's cards seemingly getting worse.
We're about to get an enchantment block, which is really just going to continue to punch black.
Hadn't even thought about that one.
Like we just had an artifact block. Black got shit all over, and I mean also like if you look at black's mechanic, it's Scars of Mirrodin. Infect, not exactly hitting a home run for cubers.
Well, not only not hitting a home run for cubers, but if black is also trying to combat Planeswalkers, and it has to do it the traditional way of attacking it, infect creatures are all very, very small.
Right.
So you can't...
Yeah. Double Strike don't work on Planeswalkers.
You can't 5 poison out a Planeswalker. Yeah. That's not how it works.
So I think that, black has been kind of in this perfect storm of, creatures getting better, removal getting worse. Old black spells becoming worse in retrospect because of the cost of them comparative to how cards are set up now. Planeswalkers being a problem, no good Planeswalkers in black. We just had an artifact block, we're about to have an enchantment block. Black has just been kind of in a rut for a long time. And one of the constant conversations I have with other cube builders and people, ask me on Twitter or email or whatever, a lot of questions are, what does your black section look like? Or how does this work? Or what do you guys do about black? No one I can ever get to draft black. Or I'm trying this out. I'm trying this out.
I feel so bad too. Was the last guy that drafted like almost mono black last week. When another unfortunate one too with what we felt like was a very strong black. Now, one thing you glossed over in the history of black that I want to come back and touch on and might help with Planeswalkers, but at the same time is a double-edged sword for the color, is direct damage, and it kind of skirts a line with how the swamps matter so much for black. I mean, black's in its history, it's drawn a lot of its strength from, well, if you play all the black, if you play the darkest magic across the board, you're going to have success. So you have your drain lives, your consume spirits. Now, those were cards were win conditions for the black decks of old in conjunction with cards like Necropotence.
Right, but like compare those cards to modern Magic cards, and it's just a blowout.
It's not. Yeah, maybe. It's not even a comparison to that. Like if you had a start with 2 mana plus X, deal X, gain X life, like something like Death Grasp, which is a card.
The card Death Grasp?
Yeah, the card Death Grasp.
Right.
Those cards are okay. They're still pretty slow.
Right.
And that's like the only one that doesn't make you have 7-8 swamps in play.
Consume Spirit's has not been lighting the world on fire, even when it got printed.
No, I had a brief love affair with it, but that was short-lived and not very powerful.
And it's only gotten worse with time, as the game has gotten faster and more creature-oriented.
And really the last gasp of black being a powerhouse of a color was during the Odyssey era, where you had Cabal Coffers, you had Mind Sludge, you had Mutilate, you had Corrupt, you had all of these cards that were like the more swamps the merrier in Indigo Shade and so on and so forth. And it's just so hard to port that to Cube where you kind of feel like you're so all in, you're so only looking at 1/5 of the pack contents.
One of the problems with, one of the things that I think we should talk about are the various, I like to think about black, if you want to compartmentalize it, is like black is built a lot around like packages of like, a theme, a subset.
Well, nowadays.
Well, I think that's kind of the way people have gone about trying to solve this problem. Of like, well, what if we try zombies? What if we try mono black as a thing? What if we try whatever? So, like, all the Swamp Matters cards are, like, clearly, like, they come together. Like, you're not just gonna, like, you're gonna play Mutilate, you're gonna play, you know, Mind Sledge, you're gonna play Phyrexian Obliterator, you're gonna play...
No, I haven't even talked about that guy.
All the super heavy black cards. The problem with that is, all of a sudden now, no one wants to draft any black cards unless they want to draft all the black cards. And it becomes, like, much less interesting to draft in general because, like, oh, cool, black card. Oh, it costs quad black. Never mind.
So it's another double-edged sword. This is never going to work out for you. Because you've got, if you try to pigeonhole black into that, you know, Swamps Matters, go all in on, and it will benefit you type thing. Sure, that might work for your cube. That might work for your play group. Someone might want to be the guy. It's kind of like mono red in that regard.
Right. You
Like
gotta have a guy.
Slightly more diverse mono red, but at the same time, it's a slightly less consistent mono red where you might end up pointing the gun back at yourself somehow.
I think part of the problem is that, you know, there was a time where we were on the mono Swamps Matter in Cube.
No, not really. We never played Mind Sludge. We had Shade.
We went very deep on it. I mean, as deep as I think is reasonable.
We never played Coffers. What is reasonable?
Like, Coffers is, I mean...
anything's possible with Urborg, that's all I know.
Yeah, I never felt like, even in Mono Black, like, the payoff was there. You know what I mean?
Ever?
I don't think Mono Black Control in Cube has, like, ever won.
Ever been a thing?
Ever 2-1 or better.
Game. Yeah, the problem is that swords have always existed since there's been Cube, and Mono Black Control especially, just like Light and Shadow. Just like cast Light and Shadow.
Forget it.
If you're playing Mono Black Control,
You
you're
can't
like,
win.
is there an Oblivion Stone or a Nevin Jarl's Disc in my deck? No? Alright, well...
What's the Phyrexian...
Gate of Phyrexia?
No, there's another one. It's Phyrexian Offering. Sack 2 creatures.
I think it's Phyrexian Tribute.
Yeah, Tribute.
It's Gatherers, right?
I'm literally looking at it.
So, Phyrexian Tribute. I think it's like Sack 2 guys.
Yeah.
Is it really 2 guys?
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
And the other one's Gate of Phyrexia. We have toyed with playing that one in Cube. You should pull that up for the people at home.
Yeah.
I was going somewhere. I felt like I got lost.
So the problem is that a lot of Black's plans or Black's thing really require a lot of devotion and don't necessarily even pay off that well. Another example is something like Mono Black Aggro, which a lot of cubes run, a lot of cards for, ours included. Things like Carnophage, Wretched Amulet, Blind Creeper is one, Bloodghast, trying to be, cheap, Flesh Reaver, Negator.
Yeah, there were times we played Negator.
Trying to be like really aggressive and trying to win that way with the Mono Black cards. And the problem there is that even Mono Black's best aggressive creatures just don't stack up compared to any other color. Other than blue.
Green will kind of equal you in size these days. Red will just outrace you in damage. And white, even without trying, will usually have either too many permanents for you to deal with,
or just
heaven
outflash
forbid
you
a
in combat.
pro-black guy.
Yeah.
Now, to go back briefly, before we move too far in NBA, we're talking about supporting the mono-black player. Like, similarly with mono-red, you could be the mono-red drafter at the draft, and you can be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of cards. Very few people are, pick off your Lightning Bolt, maybe, pick off your Burst Lightning.
Right, but no one's saying your Flame Javelin.
Sure, your Cargo Dragon Lords, all these things. And there's plenty of those cards to go around. The thing about black is not only are you going all in on it, but a lot of your best cards are being snagged off by other players.
Right, people are still snapping off your Thoughtseize and your Mind Twists and your
Demonic Tutor, Vampire Tutor, Doomblade, Mind Twist, Smother.
Yeah,
like all these
all the
single
cards.
Black cards that are the best cards for your deck already in reality.
So now people, as the people have continued trying to iterate on black to find a system that works, we've kind of moved into going deeper. It's the exception that we have to go another level deeper on black.
I believe if you go back to the original notes, I believe those have the master list. No, or the you're in the right one. You're in the right one.
So there are like I was mentioning with packages, is a common way to think about how people try and solve black. So common ones include the Pox package. Pox
It's kind of
smallpox.
bring up. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, creatures
and this was a genesis of probably like 18 months to 2 years ago. I think that kind of in a post Blood Gas, definitely post Gravecrawler kind of world, where people were like, oh, I can get the advantage back from cards like this.
Right. Trying to break the symmetrical sacrifice effects like this. Cheap guys, cheap discard, ways to get cards back out of your graveyard, stuff like that, as a way to try and get ahead in that fashion.
But now it's important to point out that I think that they're fine plans, especially if you bring up regular Pox deserves a reading.
No one can read regular Pox on the...
That was like a 5th edition version. Like
is the text larger than 3?
Yeah. 5th edition. There you go.
just crashes.
Just gather, just putts. No Pox for you.
Yeah.
We haven't.
There you go. That is ugly.
I like how it has the fractions in there. I think it's really something you see on Magic cards.
It's
interesting artwork. That's a Scott Fisher artwork.
Contagion.
Is that in the same? Would you consider that in the same vein as the Pox package?
I mean,
I guess it's important for us to define what exactly is the Pox package.
I mean, I think it's Pox, Smallpox, Contagion, kind of stuff like this. Cards that are going to come back into your graveyard, Bloodghast, obviously, Gravecrawler, and some of those actually segue into another package, which is kind of one that we've been trying out recently, which is the very heavy graveyard theme.
I'm proud of how deep we've gone on this, and I think in a small way we've innovated this area by bringing in a couple of enchantments.
I actually really enjoy it, drafting this deck and playing it. I think it's very good, and I think that it's something that I don't see a lot of other people play in their cubes, and I think that they should try it, especially if they're having problems with black.
And especially if your cube's larger.
Yeah.
It's easier to support this kind of thing. If you're running a 360, 450 kind of job, it might be a little bit harder to bring in cards like Oversold Cemetery and Oath of Ghouls.
The old 450 job. So cards like Oversold Cemetery, Oath of Ghouls function very similarly. What you're looking at here is ways to break the ability to fill your own graveyard. So a card that is also instrumental with this, obviously cards like Gravecrawler and Bloodghast that are coming back. We run Icarid.
I really like Undead Gladiator.
Undead Gladiator is another good one.
Undercity Informer. Stinkweed Imp is actually really huge here.
Stinkweed Imp is one of the most common ways to kind of turn this archetype on immediately. And basically you're looking at these decks as very grindy, slow advantage decks. You're not looking necessarily to be super aggro. You're not controlled because you're very creature based, but you're looking to win long game creature mirrors and win control matches by having so much card advantage.
I personally like them as Smallpox braid shells, although they don't always pan out that way. If you can somehow work in a little more of that board control element in there, you're obviously it's going to be easier to get that kind of incremental card advantage.
I'm a big fan of cards pairing it with green. It works obviously very well in a recurring sandwich with the recurring Nightmare Survival of the Fittest deck. Survival is a great way to turn on and keep it going with Oversold Cemetery, Oath of Ghouls.
Again, Norbert's question in the chat. Actually, we'll do Norbert's question first, and then we'll touch on another card that's a little more. It's one that's more of a debate. So the first question is here: is it possible to push Reanimator any harder? And he's recently added Dance of the Dead and could possibly even go further with Corpse Dance. Now, since we run 700 card cube,
we play a lot of Reanimation.
I don't think we could push it a whole lot further. The only way we could push Reanimator further would be literally bringing in Zombify, Dread Return.
Dread Return is the only one we don't play. That's we
don't play Zombify.
Well, Dread Return being a good reanimation spell that we don't play.
I'd like to play. I'd like to explore Dread Return now that we have Bizarre Baghdad going.
Right. We also have Bizarre Baghdad, in case anyone was curious about that Oversold Cemetery thing. It's another great way to fill your yard to turn that on and to start getting card advantage with that and take advantage of things out of your graveyard.
But to finish that comment, to answer that question, we couldn't go any deeper. I think that we are
at maximum depth.
Yeah, we have reached.
We have all the 2-mana reanimates that are not other than
we've got the strategic plans, we've got the frantic searches, we've got the faithless lootings.
We're playing Entomb. We're playing
Entomb, we're playing Intuition, we're playing
Forbidden
Alchemy. Those are all there. They're the only reanimation spells we're skimping on.
Dread Return, Makeshift Mannequin.
Diabolic Servitude we recently cut. We needed more diversity in the spells.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, we have 90 cards in black. 45 of them are spells that we want to do more than 2 things.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess where you could say we're skirting the lines we don't have. Diabolic Servitude would be the first one to come back. And then
I think I would want to try Dread Return. This is a slightly different angle. Works well with other cards that are already in black.
I mean, but you want to cheat Dread Return, and I'm trying to think in like the Bizarre Baghdad style decks how we get so many guys on the board.
Blood Gas Dictated. And a dude.
Well, all right, it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Grave Crawler? Anybody?
Yeah, but that's like the full Monty. Like,
well, obviously, like that's the full Monty.
As long as you have those guys in play,
but you could go even deeper than we currently are. We're not playing, Nether Shadow, Nether Trader.
Yeah. Sorry, beautiful segue. Well, I'll let you finish.
But, so, like, you could very easily, if you start going deep on Gather, you could find a lot of cards that are going to, like, come back from your yard, over and over and generate that advantage that way. If you really want to try that, it's all about, like, kind of, like, what level you're willing to go on this. We're going, like, at an 8 out of 10.
I'd like to think, yeah.
There's like a step above where we are now, but it's not a huge step.
Now that Bizarre Baghdad is not a flash in the pan, and instead I'm trying to look for your better ways to flesh it out as a strategy. I mean, I on the maybes list for Theros, I've already got Teleria West, and I want to switch out something for Deep Analysis. So we're making that stuff happen. I see what you're saying. So the card that everyone's talking about in the middle ground here that we currently don't play, that we talked about a lot in the past, is Buried Alive. Now, you can Buried Alive for Nether Shadow, Nether Trader, Icarid, Ashen Ghoul, Nether...
Blood Gas.
Just Nether Spirit doesn't really work.
No. But the other ones do.
But all these other ones do. And the really question is, how...
There we go.
How... actually, it's funny because we play a lot with the Odyssey ones. Those are the foils. How much does that possibly dilute the rest of the color? Like, if you want to play a black creature deck, and you're looking at packs that include cards like Nether Shadow and Nether Trader.
If you want to play a more traditional deck.
Right. Like, you just laugh at Nether Shadow. You're like, this is not a card, I'm sorry.
I think that Buried Alive, if only for speed concerns, is not what I'm interested in. Like, a 3-mana sorcery that does not affect the board is a little too slow for me.
And that's kind of where we landed on. I mean, when we cut the land destruction out of black, we really scaled it back. We wanted to be a little more proactive. We brought in more removal spells. We were trying to push the game a little bit more with black. And Buried Alive isn't that. It's kind of a combo piece when it's not a just straight up Reanimator enabler. I mean, obviously, the card is most famous for, put a Chroma, Symbiotic Worm, Arcanus in your graveyard, and then pick and choose. It's the sampler. But you can't always rely on that. You can't assume you're going to have that entire package. So we're trying to look at it more in like, well, how many different things can it do? And it's yet to prove that there's enough diversity. I mean, if we had more quality Ashen Ghouls,
it's yet to prove that it does enough that it's worth playing a 3-mana sorcery that does not affect the board. Like, this ostensibly is card disadvantage until you're taking advantage of it. Another package that has been talked about a lot, been attempted to run
back in the day, mind you.
This was like a middle of the road kind of plan. Was Vampires?
The Vampire plan.
This was right after M13 came out, or M10, excuse me, not M13.
Yeah, I think it kind of like peaked around Worldwake.
Right.
Because Worldwake, we had access to Butcher Malakir, although we did not play it. We did play Anawan the Rune Sage, which I can still get behind that card. You had a list on your show notes about the would-be vampires.
So, one of the interesting ways is that Black has a couple ways that it can kind of go tribal. Vampires is one. Cards like Vampire Nocturnus, Calastrate Highborn, Captivating Vampire, Bloodlord of Vazgoth is a newer one, Malakir Blood Witch, obviously Vampire Nighthawk, Bloodghast is a vampire.
You can also add in things like Vampire Interloper.
Yeah, Vampire Interloper.
That's another Bizumi Cutthroat, Bizumi Graveyard, Bizumi Cutthroat style magic card.
Vampire.
We already played like Lacerator.
Blood Artist is a vampire, which is a card that is very popular. To go back deeper into Magic, Ascendant Invinkar is a vampire.
Miri the Cursed.
Miri the Cursed is a vampire.
Quality vampire.
So there are some, you could very easily write yourself a list of like a dozen vampires that like I could put all of these in my cube. Now, is that any good? Is the question. And when we were running this, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really kind of like tried.
We haven't revisited this.
Yeah, we haven't tried to do an updated version of the vampires. It just seems like when Captivating Vampire and Vampire Nocturnus are kind of the crux of the strategy. Like, you don't have... Like, we don't run any, like, super tribal... Like, we don't run Lord of Atlantis, Merfolk Sovereign. I mean, if anything, I think Merfolk would be the one tribe that where there's enough seemingly quality lords that you could just, like, jam them all in there. And then, like, your Curse Catchers and Silver Girl Adepts could make something happen.
I mean, I'd rather have more quality individual cards. Like,
I mean, I think Lord of Atlantis is the only one that's really, like, short.
If you could play, like, a ton of Vampire Nighthawks, then, like, I could get more behind Nocturnus.
Yeah, depending on who you talk to, you can.
Right. So, alternatively from, vampires, there's the more traditional, which is straight zombies.
Straight zombies. No gay zombies here.
I mean, we accept all zombies.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Race, creed, and color. So cards like Cemetery Reaper. Cemetery Reaper was in Cube for a long time.
I still like this card. This is slow.
It's slow, but it's a fine guy on his own. But, Lord of the Undead.
Eating your opponent's guys and making elephants is very nice.
Yeah. So cards like Cemetery Reaper, cards like, Lord of the Undead, even you want to go back, Zombie War Chief, Zombie Master, Call of the Grave is another one that really...
Call of the Grave is a card.
Yeah,
definitely that's a card.
It absolutely rewards you for playing zombies. So, you could try and go, Shepherd of Rot, going that way.
Shepherd of Rot's also a fine one.
Highborn Ghoul is an evasive guy. You have Dead Reveler, 3/4/3. Death Baron as another lord.
Do you like a Dead Reveler? Yeah.
So zombies at least has been around long enough that there's a much deeper pool to pull from, obviously, than vampires. Even cards, like Festering Goblin, which is a zombie.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Zombie Infestation.
Zombie Infestation is another card.
Really up our alley. I mean, talk about a card that's huge with like...
That card really touches a lot of different bases.
Yeah, we could just put that in the cube just to put it in the cube almost.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Ooh. I got a stew going.
All right.
Light from the Loam.
All right, you're going to need to point that direction over there.
We can put Treasure Hunt in the cube finally?
Oh, God.
Oh, man!
All right.
Ooh,
over there.
The sauce.
Over there. So,
It's just what we need is we need more
dirty.
ridiculous off the deep end.
Like, what the hell is this?
Like, incorporating Other Druids into the cube and making it this cool thing, like, really added this completely, like, angled...
surrealistic...
angled draft strategy
Escher
that I really love, and there aren't that many out there. So if we could just bring in, like, Zombie Infestation Treasure Hunt in the cube...
Mm-hmm.
God, we got to be able to do that. Oh, the problem is one of those cards is blue, and you just can't put mediocre blue cards in the cube. Blue just doesn't stand for that.
Blue is way too high tolerance. So, there are a lot of different directions you could take black.
Definitely going home and drafting this up. Sorry, go on.
There are definitely a lot of different ways you can take black.
So we mentioned that one of the flaws is both of these tribes have great assets, but they aren't deep enough on their own.
Right. The problem is that zombies kind of has this historical problem of the individual zombies themselves are not great. Like Innistrاد's a great example of this. Like, the individual zombies are not stellar, but Army of the Damned and Endless Ranks of the Dead and Moan of the Unhallowed, like, you make a bunch of them. The problem is, like, in Cube, it's kind of hard to make a bunch of them without playing a bunch of mediocre ones. Like, it's hard to get that level of synergy that you really need to make zombies a good tribe. Similarly with vampires, like, Vampire Nocturnus is not stellar if you don't have a bunch of vampires. There just aren't a lot of cubable vampires. Like, even if you play all of them, it's like a dozen. And
again, we always want to be real. If you have a triple black hill giant that's almost depressing when you turn over the top card of your library, it's a swamp.
Yeah.
And you draw your next card, you reveal the next card, it's a swamp, you're like, oh, God.
Yeah. So, I mean,
what can I trade this card in for?
I think that, everyone who maintains a cube has had to take a long look at their black section and try and figure out what they want to do with it. And I think that if you're willing to experiment and you're willing to kind of work outside the kind of default box of discard, reanimate, mono black aggro, swamp matter cards, there are a lot of different directions you can go that are very powerful and very rewarding. It's just a matter of finding one that works for your cube. and obviously that's going to depend on your power level. It's going to depend on your, is it peasant, pauper, normal, powered, unpowered?
This is a good place.
Size.
I will say the black is a very well primed color for a tribal cube.
Yeah, and if you're a 360 cube, the size of vampires, the size of zombies, the playable zombies, the playable vampires, becomes much less of a big deal. It's much better to have, if you've only got 60 or 50 black cards or whatever, 40 black cards, I don't even know how many cards are in a 360, but if fully half of them,
a little less than half of ours, like 50 of each color.
If like fully half,
25 creatures.
Fully half of them can be zombies. Like that's enough. That's enough density where if someone wants to draft the zombies deck, they can get it, and you can test and see if that'll be any good. One individual card that I really, this is more I mentioned to you, and then I want it on record that I want to try, is Skruzdeg High Priest.
Oh, that was up in that top part.
Yeah.
Or were those 3 cards you really want to add to cube, or just?
No, these are just talking point.
Oh yeah. I feel like we spent like the last half hour like having an intervention with black, and I think we should definitely talk about the positives of it. But this is a good kind of bridge between those two topics.
Yeah.
Skruzdeg High Priest. He seems sketchy. He seems kind of like when the going's good.
Nah, man.
Going.
Nah, I think that this is exactly what, especially for us right now, this is like what Black's kind of doing. Like,
tell me more.
Like, we're already playing Icarid as an easy trigger for this.
A guy died this turn thing.
Like, we're already excited.
We got Carrion Feeder.
We're already excited to get guys into our graveyard because we're going to get them back with Oath of Ghouls, Oversold Cemetery.
We're adding Goblin Bombardment.
There are other sacrifice effects. It's a way to take advantage of the aggro cards in black because it lets you swing with more impunity. I think that this is a guy that...
You still need to have 2 dudes on tap with him as part of the thing, though. It's like you can...
Whatever. Zombie Infestation. Pitch your whole hand.
Stop selling me on it. I'm gonna go home and draft up this huge change. It's gonna be this whole deck.
Yeah.
So the goal would be to run a 40-card deck that's just Zombie Infestation, Treasure Hunt, maybe like Mystical Tutor, or maybe it's like Demonic Tutor.
Anyway,
it would be like the ideal draft deck. Time Walk, because that way you could like make a bunch of guys have and discard down to 7. It was like one of the problems with the standard deck. It doesn't matter.
So, anyway, one of the things about Skruzdeg High Priest that I like is he obviously he dies to a lot of removal. He's not very good on his own. Whatever. He just synergizes so well with what, at least in our cube, Black is trying to do. He attacks on, he utilizes the same kind of angles that a lot of the other cards in Black are doing, but he attacks from a different angle. Like, putting 5/5 demons into play is a big game, and it seems
being black, no less,
relatively trivial. I'm not going to say totally trivial, but relatively trivial to get that guy online in the black deck that wants him.
I don't know. Having played a little bit with him in Constructed, it's not a guarantee. I definitely feel like you have to work for it. That being said, maybe it's a build around me card that is really good. Maybe you're just like annoyed you have a Squire too many times. Like I'm willing to give it a try. I just don't think it's a linchpin to any kind of strategy that we have yet, and it could prove me wrong. It's going to go on the maybes block, and obviously if we bring in Zombie Infestation, it's going to have another shot. But let's talk about what Black actually does well right now, because we spent so long saying the things that the holes in its strategy.
Everybody just constantly talks shit about Black,
but it still does stuff. I mean, although the least played color of all in Cube these days, it has some decks that work really well. I mean, I think the most obvious, the one that everyone kind of jumps to, is kind of the reoccurring Nightmare-esque strategies. Most commonly green-black, sometimes blue-black. Again, you've got access to Palancron to go infinite, seemingly, as well as the draw discard. You have the compulsive researches, the thirst for knowledges, the strategic planning, so on and so forth. Which segue into the Reanimator decks, which are probably... I feel like I want to say like the most powerful decks in Black these days. What would you say?
I think that it's certainly the most commonly played Black deck. Is just put dudes in graveyard, put graveyard in play. You know,
and it's most commonly on a one-for-one basis.
a lot of this also is Reanimate really got a shot in the arm with Gristlebrand.
Card is huge.
Gristlebrand, like for a while, the biggest, battiest baddies that were coming out were Eldrazi, which do not play well with Reanimate. So, like,
You need a
the
well-timed
Reanimator deck kind of like
necromancy.
missed a block almost. It feels like, you know, we're like the huge, like, awesome baller creatures, like they just couldn't reanimate. And then, you know, in Scar's Mirrodin, it was, you know, Blightsteel Colossus, which also doesn't play well with reanimate. So Gristlebrand is like, all right, sweet. They've been putting these crazy huge guys. Angel Serenity is another one where, like, the power level on them is so high that Reanimator, like, gets a jump because, like, now its targets are so good. You know, for a long time,
I thought for sure you were going to mention Shieldred, though. And Elish Norn.
yeah, Shieldred, obviously very good. Elish Norn, very good. Sphinx of the Steelwind, going back a little bit, but,
Yeah.
you know, very powerful.
Oh, we're talking about Scar's Block.
But more recently, you know, Elish Norn, Shieldred, very, very good.
Visara, not so good.
Yeah, Visara's day is
leaving
coming on.
favor.
Yeah.
Again, the thing about Reanimator is the reanimation spells are really never going to get better at Magic, but the
No, they're
creatures
never going to get better.
are going to get better at Magic. So
It's questionable whether or not the enabling will get better. I don't think it will, but I hope it will.
we just went through a graveyard-related block. I would imagine we're going to see kind of a downshift in turn library upside down style cards. I think Innistrad probably gave us the best we're going to see for the next 5 years.
What they give us? Dutscour?
Well, I mean, Mulch. They brought back Mulch.
Oh, like Mulch,
You got, like,
yeah.
Tracker's Insight. You've got
But I mean-
Faithless Looting. You've got even cards like Dream Twist.
Faceless Looting is really the good one. I think that, you know...
Forbidden Alchemy.
That's so slow. Like, Careful Study has been in Cube. And could...
I don't know if it would ever come back. Again, it's in the wrong color.
Wrong color, I absolutely agree. That's why
Again.
they put it in red.
When it was red, it was really good. Over in the chat there we have a shout out to Iona, who we recently cut from Cube because it was too one-dimensional.
Yeah. And also never... Like, every once in a while, Gristlebrand makes an appearance in the non-reanimator deck. Iona never made an appearance anywhere other than the reanimator
Hey, remember that
deck.
time I drafted Grim Monolith, Mana Vault, and a bunch of planes?
Yeah.
And then I
And
cast
then I
Iona?
cast Iona, and it was good.
I'm not going to say Iona has not been hard cast 0 times in Cube. I'm just saying that it was so rare. And it was just seemingly this one card thing. Oh, we love Unburial Rights.
Unburial Rights is stellar.
We love
Unburial Rights is almost not even a reanimator card as much
like
as
a combo
just
card.
like a value or a combo
Oh,
card.
gosh.
The reanimate deck typically wants the 1 and 2 mana reanimate spells, not the 5 with the 4 flashback. But like decks like, you know, Revelark or, you know, other more value oriented decks really want
I think of it as a combo card because if you get Intuition, Bizarre Baghdad, or Gifts Ungiven,
Oh, it's
you
game on.
definitely want Unburial Rights. And then it's like,
Absolutely.
damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you can combo with it, then absolutely. But like the straight pure reanimator deck. Increasing Confusion is another card I feel like that helped reanimator a lot because it's another card that plays well with all the enabling because it's a card you can discard or like
You're happy to discard.
tack onto an Intuition or whatever, and it's good.
Which is weird because you would think that would make a card like Genesis better. Genesis just keeps going more and more out of favor.
He's so slow. Remember how I've had this like whole diatribe the last couple of weeks about how I am really starting to hate clunky Magic cards more and more? Like, Genesis is clunk elemental. Like,
He's not value elemental.
he Dirkwood Boars with this 3 mana upkeep, derp it around, like...
But we're talking about black.
I know.
So, again, as you can tell organically, the conversation about Reanimator and Black has drawn on because it is all those things. It is the best strategy
I mean...
in Black right now, right?
It's certainly, I would say, the most, like, pure base Black, let's say. Like, if you're talking about base Black decks, the Reanimator deck is clearly, like, the most powerful, most consistent, most regularly drafted base Black deck. Second place, obviously, would be like mono black aggro.
Wow, I'm so surprised you aren't taking the Orzhov stance here.
Well, I'm saying like base, like
Orzhov could be base black.
I mean, for those of you who don't actively cube with us, which is most of you, I've been on this.
99.9% of our audience.
I've been on this massive Orzhov kick. Kind of, I think I finally took to heart all the shit talking about black white that everyone on
Which
the
is
planet
weird.
does.
Really? Were we really?
I don't know why.
I played it plenty of times too.
I just all of a sudden felt determined that I needed to prove that was not the worst color combination. So I just drafted black-white every week.
It's like you had a vendetta out for Rakdos instead. You're like, you know who really is terrible?
Black-red.
Black-red cards. They only do one thing. Anyway.
So I drafted a lot of black-white. And that deck is certainly very powerful. It needs a lot of... I don't know. It's very tricky because black has aggro cards and white has aggro cards. So there's kind of this natural slant to draft white-black aggro, and
it's a tough one.
That's a tough one. That's real bad. But at the same time, there's also, white has a bunch of removal, and black has a bunch of removal. So I'm going to play all the white-black removal, and that deck's also bad. You have to kind of, skirt the middle ground with black-white to make it good, where, you're playing some removal, you're playing, you can play, Moat, but you're also willing to play, some kind of more aggressive guys. You have to be able to win the game at a relatively decent pace. I think I just love Obsidat.
Ghost Cancel?
Obsidat the card is just, so awesome.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
It's insane.
It's one of those times where you're like, can I?
Nope.
Can I? Oh, I can't.
Yeah,
I just like oathing into that card.
That's just mean. Obsidat's just one of those cards that, it's as long as you can get it into play with some level of consistency, which is the tricky part, obviously, it just is so warping on the game. Even if you just, even if you don't slide it, all of a sudden now it's on D, that's still awesome. But then if you get to go on up, it's very, very good.
I expect the conversation to go down that road, but yes, Obsidat, very good. I would say that probably behind Reanimation, I think that the deck that's behind Recurring Nightmare, the magic card, behind Reanimation, the strategy, I'd almost say that the enchantment-based control decks of black are probably the next level down in firepower level. I actually think NBA is becoming more of a combo deck. It's less mono black aggressive.
I look at mono black aggro as more like the mono black Oversold Cemetery of the coolest deck, and it's not necessarily mono black, but it's very heavy black.
And that's I think that deck moves away from 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and that deck more moves into value 2-drop, value 3-drop, value 4-drop.
I think that it
gum up the board, get more value, recur the value.
I think that it skirts the line. I've definitely had a deck where I was playing, Carnifage and things of that nature, and it was just playing Oathicles and Oversold Cemeteries as its late game plan. Alright, you killed all my 2/2s for one, but now I'm going to get them back, maybe I have to kill them again. So, I think that it's fine. I think that the deck definitely has slowed down. It's not trying to be mono red, breakneck pace.
Good evening.
But it's definitely a deck where you're looking to be aggressive. You're looking to turn cards sideways. Icarid, Icarid the card is not anything but aggressive.
Yeah, but it's also I still think of Icarid as kind of a combo card. Because you feel dirty paying 4 mana for that guy.
I had absolutely paid 4 mana for that guy.
I know.
I killed a Jace the Mind Sculptor with Icarid not that long ago.
Which is quality.
I paid 4 mana
quality.
And slapped that Jace. He chose to Brainstorm. It was a mistake.
A+.
That was the best Icarid in the history of mankind.
No, I think the best Icarid in the history of mankind was the end of turn when Tim Valdez said he was going to lose, and he's like, I just need a mental note into 2 Icarids. Then he mental noted into 2 Icarids and untapped to win the game. So I'm coming from the angle where I think that maybe the MBA, which I almost think that phrase doesn't apply anymore, needs to be kind of reevaluated. But what I do like is the enchantment power level of black. Now, I'm talking mostly backed on the Abyss, probably secondly backed by things like Phyrexian Arena. But then you hope to have enough control elements and enough power that you can hopefully live the dream and play Necropotence and or Yogg Bargain. Now, I'm not saying that's the backbone of the second best strategy or third best strategy for black in Cube currently, but I'm saying that the conjunction of the powerful effects found in the enchantments, the recurring effects of the enchantments from black, lead to the ability to play the power level of cards like Necropotence.
Yeah, and I think that's another place where black-white is an excellent deck just because of Rector. Cards like Moat plus Yogg Bargain is pretty brutal.
Pretty backbreaking,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Moat Abyss, obviously.
No one's your friend.
No one is your friend. But, you know, even cards like Debtor's Knell, you know, for the long game.
That is the reason it's in the cube, actually.
Yeah.
It
was back in. It was
not
out
so great on its own.
So, you know, there's a lot of powerful black enchantments, but they really pair best with white, I feel. Because white
that's
also...
where the natural life gain is.
Well, right. White with the, you know, living the dream of Pulse of the Fields with Yogg-Bargain is gross.
Pulse of the Fields is the best. I think the second best is still Zorb. I do like how, probably like 9 months ago, we brought in Ivory Tower and Zernorb as part of what we felt was the package. And long live the Zernorb.
Ivory Tower fell off the planet immediately.
Did not think that was going to happen with that card.
But, you know, Zernorb...
My evaluation of the Ivory Tower, I guess, is very outdated. It's about as dated as the Antiquities one I have.
As the card
signed by Richard... anyway.
So, you know, black does discard, obviously, you know, better than anybody else.
And we're always looking for new ways to improve it. I mean, we talked a lot in the past about bringing cards like Bog Down. That's how close we've come to
We've definitely talked about... the list of black suggestions has recently included Bog Down, Sink into Takanuma was another one.
Ugh, that was a brief conversation.
It was that versus Bog Down, I think, was a fight.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that. Go on. Go on.
So, you know, the heavier discard...
Fugue,
obviously on the expensive side. Mind Sludge, you know, kind of a similar card. Wrench Mind, not a card that is as good in our cube because we have so many artifacts, but you know, a card that has a lot of applications elsewhere.
Again, you're trying to find 2-for-1s, and sometimes against the black deck, I don't know. I mean, against the control decks, I guess, when you're playing black. I do like Sin Collector. Might be bringing him around in the near future.
Sin Collector also plays well with a lot of other things. Reveler.
I really just want to go off deep end and play like... I have all these like... Since we can't really figure what we're going to do black, and like the creature side is still being flushed out, like I think the spell side, like I'm really tempted to go like Spoils the Vault, Demonic Consultation route, and then try to find more combos.
We do play Tainted Pact.
That's totally different. Like you can't accidentally kill yourself with Tainted Pact.
Yeah,
you can accidentally kill yourself with Demonic Consultation.
If anyone, by the way, if anyone is listening who is not playing Tainted Pact in a cube that can run it, put Tainted Pact in your cube. I guarantee you there is a spell you are running that is better than Tainted Pact. Or worse than Tainted Pact.
Okay. Well, you still confused me, because I think that Tainted Pact's value is greatly dependent on the number of non-basic lands in your cube.
Right, but I think that, like, unless you have none...
Yeah, I think that Tainted Pact is definitely undervalued for people in their cubes. I don't think that it's... I see it go 15th in the MTGO cube all the time, and that's after the most recent update where there's just a million D lands running around.
I think just people don't get how it works. Or, like, just don't understand.
Yeah, we definitely... I mean, just last week, someone was trying to cast it and was asking...
They kept, like, reading it and rereading it and rereading it.
Okay, so I just name a card, and then I just, like, go get the card.
No, you don't name it. You just flip. Flip the top card. Do you want that one? No.
I really like Ambition's Cost and Ancient Craving.
I don't.
We're split on that. We'll Siskel and Ebert that one.
I would much prefer...
I guess...
If instead of Ambition's Cost and... Ambition's Cost and...
Night's Whisper?
No. I would rather have Night's Whisper and Signing Blood than Ancient Craving and Ambition's Cost.
Okay, but if you had to cut one...
I just realized that Ambition's Cost and Ancient Craving are the same card and both have the initials AC.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyway, I would rather...
If you had to cut one, what card would you bring in its place? Would it be Skull, Scrying, Sign and Blood, Night's Whisper?
Night's Whisper. Snap.
Okay.
Like, I would rather... Like, I just... Again, I don't know if this is just like how I feel about Cube right now, but 4 mana... 3 to 5 mana spells that do not affect the board are in no way what I want to be doing.
3 to 5 mana spells that do not affect the board. So I think the thing about things like Ancient Craving and Ambition's Cost, to defend them, would be that you have so much more spot removal in the color black. So in the white deck, where you have a lot of Wrath effect, you have a lot of board sweepers. So at 4 mana, you want to cast Wrath. You want to cast
cards that affect the board. Go on.
In black, you've got more spot removal, so that your curve just plays differently. You have access to tear.
I understand that, but you could play the spot removal, but then play cards in other colors at 3 to 5 mana that affect the board. Like, you do not have to play mono black. Like, you can, and that's certainly a thing. But like, it's a lot like, we were talking about. I think I was talking to you about like JC's Ingenuity.
That's the one that's probably going to become Deep Analysis.
I hate that card because I don't want to spend 5 mana even at its speed to do something that doesn't affect the board. Especially like Ambitions Cast, like I have to tap out on my own turn to draw cards, and I have to lose life.
Yeah, it's not all.
Like if that card was draw 3 cards,
Sunshine and
gain
lollipops.
3 life, I would still not be that thrilled about it.
Yes, you would.
So
You're the color black act. You still can't escape the fact that you're playing color black.
I know. I'm trying.
I mean, I have no problem diversifying there. I have no problem going back down to one of them. I mean, we came up to 4 of them. And we had a lot more of the spot removal back into black. The kind of thing was like we took out the LD, we brought in more spot removal. Well, it's like if black's playing more 1-for-1 type cards, we want to have more refill to the hand of the black mage. So it was like, okay, well, add both of these cards. I like that guy.
Norbert, there is a lower cost Phyrexian Gargantua. It is Phyrexian Rager,
Which we have played in the past.
He is a role player.
He is a literal gray ogre with lose a life draw card.
Yeah, he is definitely he's like the last man on the bench of the baseball team. He's like probably a pinch runner. He comes in like the 13th inning.
One of these days we've got to do an episode about Reject Cube because he is definitely.
Oh, he is.
He's batting close to 400 in the minors right now.
Yeah, that's one of those guys who's definitely like killing it in AAA, but can't cut it the majors.
There are like actually fans that have his jersey in the minor leagues.
He's like Brandon Belting all over the place.
And nobody.
Giants fans, maybe. All right. So,
is there anything else in current black that we touched on discard. I mean, obviously, you're being rewarded if you can play Inventory and get effective value out of it.
Sure.
You can go back to actually our previous episode where we touched on the guild pairings for drafting in Cube, each of the 2 color combinations. We have much more of a long, drawn-out conversation about each 2 color combination, so you can see how black kind of pairs with white, green, red, and blue. Shadowborn Demon, Lifebane Zombie. I love them both.
They have both been stellar.
They are the future.
Lifebane Zombie is very, like, even as good as I thought that card was going to be, it's better.
Yeah.
And I thought that card was actually going to be, like, that card, when I originally read it in the spoiler, I thought it was insane because it was just a green or white card.
Oh, yeah. That was
and then I came back to reality because it was a green or white creature card. And I got to play with it, and I'm, like, right back up. Like, it's been very, very good. And Shadowborn Demon is just, like, stellar. And also works great. Like, works great with everything that we're trying to do with black right now anyway. Like, he fuels the Universal Cemetery deck. He's a 1/8/7, so those are always good. He lets you sacrifice, so you turn on Scourge Deck High Priest.
Yeah, well, alright. Really, all I've gleaned from this conversation is I really want to play with Zombie Infestation. And I can't believe that we have gone so long without playing Zombie Infestation.
I feel like it used to be in.
Yeah, and I feel like people like mocked the fact that like black was so bad you had to discard 2 cards to make a 2/2.
I think we like a cube evaluation is funny because like so much of it is affected. It's like peer pressure about a lot of cards.
Yeah,
you know
that happens. So it comes in swings. Like people will shit on a card forever.
Like right now, everyone on the planet is shitting on Phantasmal Pain. And I'm pointing the finger at you here.
Why? I'm doing the one shitting?
No,
I'm not the one. I'm the one not taking the hint.
Right. So like it's interesting, like the peer pressure plays in Cube, like so like there's a couple other examples that I can't think
I'm
about.
sure there's plenty of examples.
We've been doing individual cards or strategies of like we should play this.
I could make it personal. I could say someone like Eck, who is constantly hating on smokestacks, who does not think it's a magic card.
Oh, that's not. That's not good.
It's okay, kids. He doesn't have to think it's a magic card.
It's fine.
It does actually bring up the talking point of Death Cloud, which we don't currently play.
Right, Death Cloud kind of functions under the mono black, and the swamps matter. Another card similar, Dross, not Dross, Death Harvester.
Dross Harvester.
Dross Harvester. The 5/6
to the internet. I don't think black. I don't think. Well, this is wait a minute.
Yep.
I don't think Death Cloud is super.
Nope.
Dross Harvester is a card.
What's that?
Yeah, you're talking about the one from Darksteel, the one that costs black, 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 and 2 colorless for a 5/6 during your upkeep.
Greater Harvester. I was close. 1 set off and 1 word off.
I think this card is scary to play with.
I mean, but Deathcloud is also a card that's like...
Deathcloud's different. We live in the age of Planeswalkers. Unfortunately, they're not black.
Well, and also, unfortunately, Deathcloud doesn't kill any.
Right.
Life loss cannot be redirected.
Let me bring up Deathcloud on the screen just so because you can read it. It's not damage, it's life loss.
Yeah.
Now, I am a big Braids fan. I am a big Smokestacks fan. And Deathcloud obviously works with those cards. Triple black kills it for me here. I can remember playing old Wooden Ship Extended where I would want to have...
God damn it.
where I'd want to have my Garruk Wildspeaker untapping my Golgari Rod Farm.
Right,
to
and you
cast
just
my
go bananas.
I
mean, I think
not only do we not live in those times, though, but you lose life here. We're just talking about how Eck does not want to lose life to do anything with the Black Mage.
Right. Well, and you can't. You just can't afford it. And I think that, there's certainly a place where, if you're playing Deathcloud, you're in a cube where you're going to be playing Phyrexian Obliterator, and you're going to be playing Mutilate and Mind Sludge, and you might be playing Corrupt, but you're definitely playing Tendrils of Corruption, and you're... really going deep on... You probably are thinking about playing Cabal Coffers, or you might even be playing it already. Just going like really, really deep on the mono black plan, and I just don't know. Like, again, to reiterate what I said earlier, the problem with the super heavy, all your cards care about how many swamps you have is either no one will draft any of them to put in their deck other than mono black. Like, no one is splashing Deathcloud. No one is splashing Mind Sludge. No one is splashing Tendrils of Corruption. These are cards that are only going to go in the mono-black deck, and I'm a big proponent of cards being flexible. Cards having homes in multiple places and color combinations as much as possible.
But I think the Deathcloud has multiple strategies that you can work with it, as opposed to, like, Mind Sludge, where it's like, well, my strategy is that I have
I'm gonna
swaps.
Cast Mind Sludge.
My strategy is that I have swaps and my opponent has cards.
Yeah.
I think that the Deathcloud is different, and you can make it do things.
Sure, I mean...
It's not making our cube anytime soon because of the restrictions.
If we were more interested in the mono-black, like, super heavy black plan, then I think this would be in that list.
I'm just trying to think of ways that we could induce it right now. It's like we don't have, like, Aeon... No, it's not even very good with Aeon Chronicler.
That is also the slowest thing I've ever heard. Suspend Aeon Chronicler.
Suspend cards.
Yeah, I mean, Nihilith. Nihilith is, like, the easy one, right?
It's just sack permanents, right? Sack creatures.
No, it's sack creatures and sack lands.
Sack creatures, sack lands. So, Indestructible doesn't do anything with it, does it? No.
Open runs like Indestructible, and you run white.
I don't get that.
I don't get
Gargadon, it's okay with Gargadon, but you're kind of all in on Gargadon. It's like a bad upheaval almost. It's like if Hebel said, like, lose 3 life.
Right.
Which you don't want it to say.
No.
You need 3 life.
Yeah, you need all the life you can get. Can't spell start in here. So, like, Nihilith is, like, the obvious combo, right?
Yeah. And that guy's kind of a one-trick pony.
I mean, he's a pretty decent pony, but...
He's a 4/4 fear pony for Suspend a million.
Undercity Informant.
Yeah, that's alright. Just, if we ran all the double black filters, which I could be talked into doing, things of this nature could get better.
Oh, like the triple black stuff.
I meant like Sunken Ruins.
Right, but I'm saying
Raven
like,
Karens.
The cards like Deathcloud become easier to cast.
Yeah.
So, like the drawback is less.
Yeah.
I mean, we already play Urborg.
Yeah, that card's like a token magic card. I don't know. That's another reason to bring in Teleria West, I feel like.
Yeah.
And again, it's so annoying that like Worldly Tutor doesn't tutor for a land.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's no Living Wish.
Which is so annoying because we can't put wishes in the cube. Because
I wish. I wish we could wish.
You could put wishes in the cube, but how bad would that be? I need this Urborg to make my deck run. I'll put it in my sideboard.
Yeah, you get to reference the cube. All the undrafted cards.
Ugh.
It's like
I still want to play it for realsies. Like, we've never been in a circumstance where we play wishes for real ever in Magic. As much as
you have to just bring a binder of shit with you.
No, it says your collection.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're playing with our cube with our cards in this game. It says your collection.
Yeah. If you didn't bring anything with you, that card doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's like the booster tutor. Screw this making a pack out of the cube cards. No. Go buy a pack.
Yeah.
Think about what you want, and then buy a pack that is appropriate for that.
I'm trying to think of over the years what all have we.
Buy a Kaijudo pack.
I mean, no. Oh my gosh! There was an old Duelist article I was reading recently where there was people would send in letters to wizards asking rules questions.
I just mentioned how great that you just casually were just reading old Duelist articles.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, what do you do for fun? I read 20-year-old magazines about trading card
old
games.
Duelist articles.
Yeah.
Dude, that book about advanced tournament strategy. Remember that picture I posted online?
Yeah.
About the reasons to play aggro? You can kind of check that out. So they would send in questions. This is how the world worked. You would send your questions into Wizards of the Coast,
and then several months later they would respond.
They would answer them. So there was literally a question submission saying for Ring of Maruf from Arabian Nights, which says, go get a card from outside the game. They asked if they could go get just like the 7 of clubs.
Yeah.
And the answer was, sure, you could go get the 7 of clubs. Good luck casting it,
Right.
but you could go tutor for that card. We've gone very far off topic, but
Black.
yeah, that's where it leads. We can play Sylvan Scrying, I guess.
Sylvan Scrying?
Yeah, that's one that tutors for any land.
Oh. Yeah, I mean...
Demonic tutor for lands.
Why not just play crop rotation?
Because you have to sack a land.
Yeah, but it's...
We could be both.
That's a bit deep for me.
Is it?
Although crop rotation life in the long. I mean, I don't know how you haven't already been all about this already.
Well, I'm just thinking, if we're going to add Pelucranos to the cube, Gaze Cradle gets a little bit better. If we're pushing things like Bazaar, Baghdad, and Urborg ever so slightly, cards like Sylvan Scrying and Crop Rotation.
Right, which is why why we've been talking about Teleria West.
Yeah, and Teleria West is a natural
if,
fit because, it's
if
a
you're
land and it taps for blue. So it's good already.
Yeah, that's already the qualifier for being a cube.
You could have a cube where islands came into play tapped, and blue would still be just fine.
If every island was just Teleria West, you just had a stack of 60.
I was just going to say they all had Kismet attached to them.
What was I going to say? Oh, instead of Sylvan Scrying, why not just have Expedition Map? Because then other people will play it besides just green.
We can run Expedition Map too. That's a Trinket Mage target.
See.
We have plenty of room in the artifact section. The artifact section's pretty loose.
It's not that loose, is it?
It feels like it's loose.
I mean, it's looser than blue.
Well, everything's looser than blue.
Looser?
Blue is one type butthole.
It's looser than... I don't know. I feel like every color has at least 2 cards that would cut.
Well,
except black, which has
You kind of want that though. You want to have cards that you can cut.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every time a set comes out, it's just
it's pulling teeth. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Last time the Dragon's Maze Meaning of the Minds did not go so well.
I felt that went fine. I don't know what you talked about.
Did you get a lot of concessions? Is that why?
Yeah, I feel like I got my way for most of it.
I felt like I had to just cave on a bunch of stuff, and it was
yeah, because you just had 6 dudes yelling at you for 2 hours.
So I like to spend my evenings.
Yeah, that and reading old Duelist articles.
Welcome to my life. Is there anything else we want to say on the color black?
No, I mean...
What about the future of black? What would you like to see for black, Eck?
I would like to see Doomblade for Planeswalkers, and I would like to see them have a Planeswalker that is any good. Liliana Vess is bad. Liliana of the Dark Realms is bad. Soren Markov is bad. Am I missing anything?
So, a good black Planeswalker for cube. Another.
Black has the lowest Planeswalker density.
Yes.
And the lowest Planeswalker hit rate.
Yes.
And no good way to deal with it. Other than Vampire Hexmage, which is 1 card. Black needs a mechanic. Black needs a keyword to help deal with Planeswalkers, I feel. Black should just have a card. Black should have, creatures, or, a keyword that says, this creature is unblockable if it is attacking a Planeswalker.
That could happen.
Yeah, a double black, like Vampire Hexmage, 2/1 first strike.
What they'll probably end up doing is they'll probably cop out and put on some shitty aura.
Well, obviously. Or it'll be an enchantment that's all creatures you control are unblockable if they're attacking Planeswalkers.
Cover of Darkness.
Right. So just if you had a 2/1 first strike for double black, It's just like, this is unblockable if it's attacking a Planeswalker. Like, that's a card. You know, stuff like that. So
a quality black planeswalker, another reliable planeswalker kill spell.
yes.
These things seem valuable.
And these things seem like things that they will print. Like,
well,
they're clearly interested in printing.
Am I going out on a limb here asking for another Urborg variant? Would that be too much? Or did they already tease me by giving me, like, Realm Right?
Oh. That's not teasing anyone.
You could range your VS for it.
I was going to say, like, what about another Cabal Coffers, but we already got that with Cryptic Academe.
Not really. I don't think any of those things are true.
I mean...
As much as I like Cryptic Academe theme decks from back in the day. The original Living
Extracted
Death
Demon?
deck. Yeah. There's where your Monstrous Carapads go.
I just think that... I would really like to see black move away from all of our spells are black, 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 and count the number of swamps you have. And
all we do is cut ourselves.
Right, like...
Well, black is really, really
black
good
could just have, like, good, like, Shadowborn Demon is a good example. Like, it's double black, sure, but it's just a powerful card on its own. It doesn't need to care... doesn't care about how many swamps you have. It doesn't cost quadruple, quintuple black.
At the end of the day, that's what Cube's supposed to be. It's supposed to be really powerful cards that can have very powerful synergies that can also stand on their own.
Right, and that's just, like... They just need to print... They need to print more cards, like, you know, that cost, like, 1 black that are powerful. Fewer cards that are black, black, black. Like if they printed, like, okay...
No more Dark Prophecies.
Here's a... Right. That, yeah. So, like, here's a thought experiment for you. In Modern... And by Modern, I mean, like, today Magic. Okay. In Theros, let's say. Okay. They print Necropotence for 2 and a black. Does that card see play?
Got it.
I don't think it does. I do not
like
think...
the literal exact,
like,
you don't get the
literal
card
exact, you don't draw a card, you don't
your
use her. Literal Necropotence. I don't think it sees play at 2 and a black. I think that if you try and draw that many cards against the red deck, they'll murder you instantly.
No, there's enough shitty life gain going around. Like, you just completely warp the game at that point. It's just that good. You wouldn't even be close. You'd play, like, quad Elixir Immortality, you would play the Trading Posts, Bubbling Cauldrons. It'd be a sweet deck.
I mean, okay, obviously, the world would be a very different place.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You just can't do it.
I think, like, that they just need more... Like, they need to stop using, we'll just make it cost nothing but black mana as, like, their drawback on black cards.
I think they're already doing that. I mean, look at the core sets for the last...
Dark Prophecy. Like, look at the core set.
That's one example. I'm saying, like, if you're looking at... You're talking about all of the spells. Like, that's like saying, like, well, Enter the Infinite and Omniscience all had all this blue mana in it. It was doing something very blue. That's doing something very black.
Right, but the problem is doing things that are very black are also very mediocre. Like, the things that are very black are not very good in Modern Magic because the game has changed.
Right. That is the root of the problem.
Yeah. So black needs to move away from its infinite swamps.
It needs to
move into the...
It needs to go to a new world.
Right. It needs to get
Farm
a makeover.
tobacco.
It needs to get a makeover. You know, it needs to, like, become more agile in a business environment. You know, and shift a paradigm or two.
All right.
You know, teleconferencing or whatever. So,
the short answer is we don't know yet. All we can really do is attempt to get as much of the black magic power from back in the day, harness it, and make it playable in the current cube environment that's becoming more and more about creatures. So,
amen, sister.
From there, we'll see what we can do. I mean, we obviously have a wish list for black, what we'd like to see it do for magic. But we don't know what we're going to get. In the interim, draft Recurring Nightmare. Definitely draft Reanimator.
As a quick aside, I think one of the other problems is that black has been consistently a color that has cared about the graveyard, and they are now aware of the graveyard as a resource. So black gets to, like...
That's one more thing, like, R&D's onto them.
Right, exactly. Like, they don't get to skirt, like, the freebies on that one anymore.
The days of Yogg-Will are long gone.
Right.
Also, a card not playable in cube. Get the hell out. Unless you're running combo cube, get Yogg-Wills out of your cube. That card is so slow and bad. You hope it's like a regrowth that costs an extra mana. You hope it is. Even with fetch lands, that you could, like, you're looking for incremental value. You're like, cast it, get a fetch land back, cast another spell. So painful.
And on that rant, we should call it a night.
We will be calling it a night. So, thanks everyone on the live side for coming out this evening. You can find us every week at ecomon.blogspot.com for all of your Cube episodes, sometimes Cube updates, very rarely Cube pictures, but more Cube information. Hopefully you'll find more of it there. You can currently still find us on mtgcast.com pretty weekly, since they are still friends, allies.
Countrymen.
We have a treaty. You can also follow us on Twitter. You've got at Young Mecha over here for Eck. You've got at Tristan Gregson, myself. Drop us any information you have about your cube, questions you might have about cubing, rants, raves, so on and so forth. If you'd like to send more media our way or more a long-winded question, check us out at draftcube@gmail.com. And, check out that Kickstarter for the Cube Vault guys. Help them out. Pick up a sweet Cube box. Mention us and get 5% off. I'm just kidding. That's not how it works. We get nothing out of this deal.
We're going to get in trouble for that one. I'm going to get an angry phone call from Murray. Just kidding. He doesn't know my number. That's fine.
He can find your number.
I know.
Anyway, there you have it, guys. We'll see you next